Hello folks and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at Friends Season 1, Episode 4, the one with George Stephanopoulos. And if you're new to these videos, well, have you ever watched one of these sitcoms and thought, what joke are they actually making right there? I don't understand the context behind it. That's what these videos are about. I will be going through each episode and explaining the pop culture references that pop up, so next time you watch that episode in your personal watch through, you'll understand the joke a little bit better because you've got the context and the background. You'll just sit there going, I can laugh along with the canned laughter now. Didn't this work out lovely? And as you're watching, don't forget that the comment section is open down below. So if there are any pop culture references that I'm explaining that you already knew, feel free to put that in. Or if there are any that you didn't know. And finally, the veil has been lifted. The sky has cleared. All those clouds have dissipated. And I understand what this means now. Thank you so much for doing that. Enter. And once we're done with the pop culture references, I'll follow it up with a little bit of select trivia and then give my review on the episode that's just passed. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a little like, but also if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any future videos, subscribe as well, because any new episodes that pop out, whether it's for Friends, whether it's for Gilmore Girls, or any other shows that might be on the horizon, you'll definitely see it pop up in your feed if you hit that subscribe button. Alrighty, I think that's everything covered for the intro, so let's jump into it, shall we? Joey and Chandler have gotten Ross a birthday present.
Here's the birthday boy. Ross, check it out. Hockey tickets, Rangers, Penguins, tonight at the Garden, and we're taking you.
Happy birthday, pal.
We love you, man.
These two ice hockey teams are the Rangers, full name the New York Rangers, so of course they are the local team to where Friends is set. And here's a little fun fact. They're called the Rangers because of George Rickard, who was the president of Madison Square Garden in the 1920s, and Madison Square Garden is the home arena for the New York Rangers. And Rickard was a cowboy and marshal in Texas. And because of that, he gained the nickname Tex. And so when he set up this new ice hockey team in 1926, they were nicknamed Texas Rangers, eventually dropping the Tex part and just keeping the Rangers, and now they are the New York Rangers. Which makes sense when you know the history, but doesn't really, because what are Rangers doing on ice? Why would you have a Ranger on ice? But what definitely makes more sense is to have an ice hockey team called the Penguins, and the Penguins are the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they were given this name because of a contest. Yeah, Pittsburgh Penguins gained the name Penguins because it was what was voted on. And the reason that Penguins were suggested isn't just because penguins go on the ice and ice hockey players go on the ice. Not just that, but the team played at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, which was nicknamed the Igloo. So of course you think Igloo, you're going to think somewhere along the line, penguins. Makes total sense. But what doesn't make sense is Ross saying that his birthday was 7 months prior, when in the next sentence he says that it's October 20th. That would mean that it was sometime in March, but it's not. His birthday is actually October 18th. I'm not going to go into it here. I'm going to probably make a dedicated video later down the line about all of the inaccuracies of the timelines of Friends, because they were born all over the shop. So we'll get to that. Rachel has just got her first paycheck, and Phoebe reminisces about hers.
I remember the day I got my first paycheck. There was a cave-in in one of the mines, and 8 people were killed. Wow, you worked in a mine? I worked at a Dairy Queen. Mine.
Dairy Queen is an American fast food franchise that started up in the 1940s, and you'll have to forgive me for not knowing what they were because they don't operate in the UK. Actually, technically, I suppose they did for a slight period because there was a Dairy Queen in the Cayman Islands, and the Cayman Islands are a British overseas territory, but I didn't get to go there because I grew up in Birmingham. So yeah. With the different sizes of the Dairy Queens, mean the different sizes of menus, but usually they served fast food such as burgers, fries, and chicken, but they are most well known for their cold desserts, their frozen yogurts, their soft serve, their thick milkshakes, and their blizzards, which is basically just a blended mix of ice cream and different flavors. And these blizzards and the milkshakes are so thick that you can tip it upside down over someone's head and it won't fall out, because that's how thick it is. And there's one stipulation for this little turning upside down thing, which I think is really interesting. Whoever is serving has to turn at least one item, obviously one of the actual cold items, not just like a portion of fries, one cold item per order upside down And if it's not been witnessed to have done that, the customer can go, hey, they didn't turn my frozen thing upside down. And the customer will receive a voucher for a free frozen thing. So make sure you always see them turn it upside down. Maybe that's why they're no longer in the Cayman Islands, because the Cayman Islands are really warm. And I can just imagine having that as a all over. No. And so after Phoebe's horrific revelation, Rachel finally gets to open her paycheck.
I earned this. I wiped tables for it. I steamed milk for it, and it was totally not worth it. Who's FICA? Why is he getting all my money?
FICA stands for the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, and it's a tax on the American payroll that both the employer and employee pay into to help fund things such as Social Security, Medicare, and other such establishments. And so, yeah, Central Perk will be paying in some, but it seems like Rachel Green is also paying in a lot as well. This is the first paycheck she's ever received. So, of course, she's going to be like, why do I not have as much money as I thought I deserve? Which for real is always a nice thing when you do get a wage slip through and you're like, here it is. Oh, there it was. And now it's gone. Oh. It's a big day for Rachel, getting her first paycheck, and now she has visitors.
Rachel? I've seen birds do this on Wild Kingdom.
Wild Kingdom is a nature-based TV show that originally ran from the mid-60s through to the mid-80s. And basically, it was talking about the environment and wildlife. Each week, the hosts would talk about different animals and their behaviors, and they would also talk about places in the world as well, such as like the Amazon rainforest and deserts and all these different types of things. It was incredibly popular and incredibly successful, winning scores of awards, and it is credited to being the start of the pipeline for nature documentaries as we know them today. Because so many people were tuning in to watch Wild Kingdom that it was obvious, there's a real market for people to want to watch nature programming. So more shows would pop up and eventually channels would pop up. Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, they exist because of Wild Kingdom. And so of course, Monica growing up would have watched this show and seen groups of birds shrieking so shrilly, much like these new visitors in the coffee shop are. But perhaps these are actually birds themselves, the consumerist canaries. I shouldn't write jokes, should I? I should just explain them. The boys are excited for their hockey game and they're playing in the street.
Across the blue line, passes it up to Leach. Leach spots Messier in the creases, the pass. We'll take a brief time out while Messier stops to look at some women's shoes.
So 3 ice hockey players who played for the New York Rangers have just been named, and I'll just show you who they are. Chandler is being Craig McTavish, who only played for the Rangers for 1 season. 1994, the same year that this episode came out in. So it's just perfect happenstance that Friends, set in New York, wanted to make an ice hockey reference, and they refer to this one player who was just there for 1 season, and now he is immortalized within the script of Friends and within the explanation of this YouTube video. I see you, Craig, and you're entirely welcome for this explanation. Joey is being Brian Leach, who was a much-loved player and is considered the top defenseman in NHL history, and he was even called the greatest New York Ranger of all time. And he holds the record for the most goals scored by a rookie defenseman. So yeah, he's pretty darn good, and it makes sense for the only one of the 3 who's actually wearing a Rangers jersey to be allowed to emulate him. You've got the goods, you get to be the good. And Ross, even though he's not playing, is Mark Messier. And it's a shame that he's not playing because Mark Messier is considered one of the greatest ice hockey players of all time. And I mean, when you've earned 2 nicknames, one being the Moose because of how strong and aggressive you are, and the other one being the Messiah, a play on his last name for sure, but he also broke a 54-year drought of the Rangers not being able to win a Stanley Cup, which he managed to do along with his team, Leach and McTavish, in 1994, the year that this show came out. Fantastic. And so, of course, the boys and New York Rangers fans are high off this Stanley Cup win because that happened in June of 94, and this episode, as said by Ross, takes place on October 20th, 1994. And so there you go. 3 hockey players. Pretty cool, eh? because it's ice. Ice is cool, and so they're cool. 1, 2, 3. Let's carry on with the show. I'm not counting this one as a reference, but I just want to explain it anyway.
What?
Peach Pit.
Yes, Bunny?
So watching this as a kid, it always confused me because I was like, is there some sort of deep cut reference? Peach Pit, was that the name of something? Bunny? Bugs Bunny? Was there some sort of cartoon or anything? No. Peach Pit is just a cute name. Hey, Peach Pit. Hey, Sugar Pie. Hey, Honey Blossom. And so is Bunny. Chandler hears Ross go, oh, Peach Pit. He's making a joke on, oh, you're calling me a sweet little pet name. Yes, Bunny. Like, that's all it is. It's Chandler being sarcastic, saying that, there we go. I just wanted to explain that because it confused me for many years. And hey, maybe that helped to clear something up for you as well. But Rachel has had a bit of a day. She comes back to the apartment and Monica offers her this.
How would you like some tiki death punch?
What's that?
Well, it's rum and...
Okay.
So because the recipe got cut off there, I thought I'd finish it for you. Now I've been looking around and there doesn't seem to be a definitive, oh, it's this, this, and this, but these are the type of ingredients that are agreed on. So we've got some rum. Yes, it's usually a mix of dark rum and white rum. Some add strawberries, some add pineapple juice. There is lime in there. Some add grapefruit as well. And that's pretty much it, really. Just mix that all up in differing levels and different quantities, and you've got yourself some tiki death punch. I mean, it must have a bit of a kick to it to be called a death punch, because I don't know about you, I'd rather just have my drinks just be alive and enjoy them. I don't want to die from having a drink. That's the opposite of staying hydrated. And because Phoebe is staying over at the girls' apartment, they want to make a night of it.
We got some trashy magazines, we got cookie dough, we got Twister. Oh, and I brought Operation. But I lost the tweezers, so we can't operate. But we can prep the guy.
So 2 different games were listed here, both of them produced by Milton Bradley, which was eventually bought by Hasbro. So Twister and Operation are both Hasbro games in the modern day. Twister is just this big old sheet here with all these different colored dots on. And when you spin the little arrow, it'll tell you where to put which body part to which color. And so it's about a group of people all layering up. In fact, I'll show you the screenshot of when they played at the end, because that's basically it. So it's a good way to bring people together, because it's kind of another, oh, look, we're all 4 on top of one another. It was a huge fad, a huge craze. It sold millions upon millions. A lot of people just wanted to get this because I suppose it's a really fun icebreaker type of, oh, look, we're all on top of one another. But it also had controversies because you're all on top of one another. And it was just labeled as sex in a box by some advocates to try and get rid of it. But yeah, that's Twister. Fun for all, unless you don't have any friends. And then you just sitting there on a plastic sheet doing yoga, basically. And much like Twister, Operation is a test of dexterity, but on a finer level, because you've got this guy on the operating table and he's got all these holes cut into him, and there are these little plastic bits, like his little Adam's apple, he's got bones, he's got kidney, and all this type of stuff, and you need to use the tweezers to pick them out of him, but you can't touch the sides. If you touch the sides, then his nose will light up and it'll go, and you know you've failed. So it's all about being precise, being really careful, and just threading the needle to pick it up, take it out, boom, we're good. And when you think of it, it doesn't quite make sense as to why, because if you're just removing something, just touching the side of someone's body is not going to do the worst thing. And I would argue, I mean, I'm not a surgeon, but I would argue if you're taking someone's heart out, picking it up halfway, and then, oh, do you know what? I better leave it then. Touched his rib, better put that back. I'd say that does more damage than good, to be honest. If you've started, you might as well finish. Take it out. Get the job done. But you know, who am I? I didn't go to medical school or board game designing school, so what do I know? And just to tack on, when Phoebe says, oh, we can prep the guy, that means prep for surgery. So to prep someone for surgery, you're putting them on the table, you are making sure they're all covered in wherever they need to be covered, you're making sure wherever is visible, they're marked out of like, oh, you know, operate here, don't cut this leg off. They are rubbed down with the anesthetic alcohol and all that type of stuff. They are just ready to go so that the surgeon can come in and get straight to work, not having to go, oh, do this, oh, do that. No, they're all good to go. And so, yeah, that's all they can do with the absence of tweezers. Just look at this guy on a table in his boxer shorts. A fun girls' night in. And now Rachel is having the wobblies over starting this new life.
I gave up, like, everything. And for what?
You are just like Jack.
Jack from downstairs?
No, Jack and the Beanstalk. See, he gave up something, but then he got those magic beans. And then he woke up and there was this big plant outside of his window full of possibilities and stuff. And he lived in a village and you live in the village.
The thing is, there's not a lot for me to explain here because Phoebe basically tells the whole story in one. And so there's not much to add on to it. It's an English fairy tale that came out in 1734. I think this might be the shortest explanation I've done. Let's move on. The girls ordered a pizza, but the wrong one was delivered. But it's not all bad news.
So you guys want me to take this back?
What, are you nuts? We've got George Stephanopoulos' pizza!
So nowadays, George Stephanopoulos is recognized as being a political journalist and host for various shows on ABC. But at the time of this episode, he was well known for his work with the Clinton administration. You see, because he started out as an advisor in the Democratic Party, eventually moving on to becoming a communications director for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. And then when Clinton became president, Stephanopoulos became the White House communications director and eventually became the senior advisor to the president. And this is a huge responsibility, arguably one of the most public-facing positions apart from the president and the vice president that you can have within any administration. So he would often be seen addressing reporters and answering their questions whilst the nation watches, and he would, well, I was going to say what he would usually be wearing, but I'll let Monica and Phoebe describe that, shall I?
Was this a small Mediterranean guy with curiously intelligent good looks? Was he wearing a stunning blue suit and a power tie?
And so, yeah, he's a good-looking, intelligent, well-spoken man. I can see where the girls are coming from. I wouldn't mind a slice of that. Pizza. I mean, it was mushrooms, green pepper, and onion. That sounds divine. Yes, please. Granted, George Stephanopoulos can be a difficult name to say, and Rachel mishears it.
Phoebes? Who's George Stephanopoulos?
That's Big Bird's friend.
I do just want to say I love this extra level of irony here. The fact that Rachel can't quite understand a Greek name, considering the fact that the actress who plays her, Jennifer Aniston, is of Greek heritage. Her last name is actually Anastasakis. So, yeah, I just think that's a nice little bit of a joke right there. So Mr. Snuffleupagus is this big kind of like anteater dinosaur thing. It's quite nondescript, but has a long nose, no tusks, so not elephant-based, and a body kind of like a sauropod. This trunk or snuffle, it drags along the floor, and the one thing that it is that it is Big Bird's best friend. So originally, Mr. Snuffleupagus was seen to be an imaginary friend of Big Bird's because he would only appear when no one else was around. So when any of the other puppets were gone or any of the adults were gone as well, then Mr. Snuffleupagus would make an appearance. And usually something would go awry. Mr. Snuffleupagus would knock something over, break something, cause some kind of mischief or mayhem, and then leave again, scarper off, and Big Bird would be left to pick up the pieces and usually get the blame. When the adults came back, when the other puppets came back, they'd be like, hang on, what happened here? What's gone on? And Big Bird would be like, oh, it was my mate, Mr. Snuffleupagus. And they'd be like, he doesn't exist. No one's seen Mr. Snuffleupagus. We don't believe you. You're just using Mr. Snuffleupagus as a scapegoat. And so this joke continued for many years until eventually Big Bird actually introduced Mr. Snuffleupagus to the rest of the street. And it was a really big thing at the time because he had been known as this imaginary friend. There were songs written about him, there were newspaper articles written about him, like he was, just a figment of Big Bird's imagination. But now the puppets see him, the adults see him, and they're like, oh, all this time, Big Bird, when you said it was because of Mr. Snuffleupagus, you were right. You weren't lying. I'm so sorry that we didn't believe you. And the reason for that reveal and change of direction in narration was actually because of some pretty dark real-life incidents. Basically, through the 80s and 90s, there were a slew of reports of incidents of paedophilia in daycare centres. And there were a lot of establishments that were accused undeservedly just because they were caught up in this hysteria of accusations, but There were, in fact, a lot of cases where individuals were found guilty and sent to prison for up to 50 years for their crimes. And so in light of all this, the writers at Sesame Street thought, hang on, we can't have it that the representation of a child, which is Big Bird, because don't forget, Big Bird isn't just a character, he is meant to be basically a kid, right? You know, everything that happens to him, the kids watch Big Bird and go, oh, I relate to that. Look, he's asking these questions, he's doing these things, I relate to him. But then when he says, hey, this happened, and the adults go, we don't believe you, Big Bird, that can't happen. We can't have kids watching Big Bird being told, no, you're making this up. There is no Mr. Snuffleupagus. You're making that up. You're lying that this happened. We can't have that. We want kids to have the courage to be able to speak up and know that they will be believed. And so the decision was made to not make Mr. Snuffleupagus imaginary so that there were no more incidents of people not believing when Big Bird told the truth. And I think that's just another example of how incredibly fascinating the thought processes and the mind behind media creation is, because it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Like a kid would see Big Bird going, hey, I'm telling the truth, and the adults going, no, you're not. And they would go, that will happen to me. If I tell a truthful story, an adult may go, no, it's not, so I won't say anything. So yeah, you just thought I was going to explain a funny name, and instead I gave the darkest explanation I've done yet. Let's get back to thinking about George Stephanopoulos in the towel, shall we? Whilst the girls were having existential crises and pizza, Ross got pucked in the face with a puck. He went to the hospital and now he's got his nose repaired.
Oh, that's attractive. Oh, I thought you were great in Silence of the Lambs.
The Silence of the Lambs is a 1991 movie which follows a young FBI agent, Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, as she is on the hunt for a serial killer called Buffalo Bill, played by Ted Levine. And in order to catch him, she seeks the advice of Hannibal Lecter, played by the incredible Sir Anthony Hopkins. And Hannibal Lecter is a brilliant psychologist, and a convicted cannibal. I mean, when your name is Hannibal and you become a cannibal, which came first? Did you think, do you know what? How funny my name sounds like that. Maybe I'll give it a go. Oh, it seems I like it. What are the odds? Because Gavin the cannibal doesn't really have the same ring, does it? It is one of the best films ever made, and Anthony Hopkins gives one of the best performances ever recorded. And the reason it was just referenced is because there is a scene in the movie where Dr. Lecter has to be relocated, and he is a very dangerous man. He will kill people and eat them, okay? That is a very dangerous individual to be dealing with. And so as such, in order to safeguard against that, he is strapped in tight. He's got a straitjacket on. He is restrained to like a carrying board, and he has this mask over his face so that he can't bite anybody because he's a convicted cannibal. Can we just, what? I mean, there's something about the fact that it is such an unbelievable removed from reality type of plotline, and yet there is such realism in it, and there's such a raw energy to it. And I remember this interview with Sir Anthony about it, and he said, look, I can't relate to wanting to kill and eat people. I can't relate to that. No one can. Not many people can. I definitely can't relate to that. So you have to find the other things to latch onto in order to relate to it. Fascinating, his process. Anyway, going off on a tangent there. It's because I went to the same drama school as Sir Anthony Hopkins. And so, yeah, I just respect his work so much. And he's a great inspiration. But anyway, the mask. He's got this mask on. It's covering his face so he can't bite people. And it looks like the covering that Ross has on his head. That's pretty much it, really. As simple as that. And we end the episode with the group playing a game.
Okay, Monica. Right foot red.
We could have played Monopoly, but no!
Monopoly has been the cause of many a broken friendship and broken family, especially around the holidays, because when you bring out the game, it's going to cause some arguments. Designed by the Parker Brothers in 1935, it was actually based on The Landlord's Game from 1903. And funnily enough, the original game is actually kind of the opposite of what Monopoly is nowadays, because the game that we know nowadays is about buying land, adding properties, and then charging people rent whenever they land on it. So it's about you taking a monopoly of hoarding people's money. But the original game actually had another rule about taxation, and then you taxed the landowners. And so the more lands you own and the more properties you build, the greater tax you have to pay, and the other players would get cuts of this tax. And so it was a lot more of a balanced game. And in fact, it was meant to serve as the idea of this is what taxation should be. This is how landlords should operate. They shouldn't be allowed to hold monopolies. Instead, the people should be allowed to still get profits and still kind of level out the money from these monopolizing landlords. But when the Parker brothers made it in 1935, they got rid of that taxation rule and instead went, hey, it's really good to have loads of money. What was that about? Anti-capitalism? Nah. Here's a little thimble. Here's a top hat. Have fun. So yeah, that is the game that they could have been playing. Instead, they're playing Twister, which I explained earlier on, and that is the last pop culture reference for this episode. And so there we go, folks. Every pop culture reference explained in Friends Season 1, Episode 4, the one with George Stephanopoulos. And I've been keeping a running tally of all the pop culture references that pop up throughout the episodes in the series, so let's take a look at the scoreboard now. As you can see, the first 3 episodes were showing a decline in pop culture references included. However, this episode has bucked that trend because Season 1, Episode 4, the one with George Stephanopoulos, contains 16 pop culture references covered. And so when we take a look at where it stands within the rankings, it has rocketed into first place, now finally dethroning the pilot episode, which only has 13. And I have to say that result was surprising because I did think we were going to see less and less as the series goes on. I knew there was going to be at least one reference to explain because the title is the one with George Stephanopoulos, even though he doesn't appear in it. May I just say, I wonder if George Stephanopoulos is really happy with this episode because he's got 3 young women absolutely fawning over him. And then there's this scene.
Oh, George, baby, drop the towel. Come on, drop the towel. You can do it. Drop the towel. Drop it. Wow.
I mean, come on. He is now immortalized at having a member down there so impressive that it makes 3 women swoon. I can think of much worse ways to be remembered forever. Good on you, George. Good on you. But now we're done with the pop culture references and let's take a look at a little bit of trivia. When Phoebe, Monica, and Rachel were out on the balcony, Rachel knocks her pillow over the edge. That wasn't supposed to happen, but they left it in anyway. Fair enough. And I really like it because it's just this little moment that you can tell it's accidental. It falls away and you go, oh, okay. And good on Jennifer Aniston for just rolling with it and getting a laugh out of it. And then they solidified it at the end with the guy coming back to hand over the pillow. And you know that was just a last minute, do you know what? Do you know what'll be really good? Just add that in. It doesn't add to the scene. It doesn't detract. A wonderful joke born of an accident. I was going to say, that's kind of a good summary of my life, but let's not be self-deprecating, shall we? Matt LeBlanc said that his favourite all-time Joey moment was in this episode when Joey childishly pretends at the hospital that the hockey puck is repeatedly coming straight at his head. And it is such a sweet little moment because you can see right there, like Joey still is like an 8-year-old. Like, whoa, like replaying the moments when it hit Ross, but then whoa, just like playing it through. It's a real kiddish thing, but not in a, oh, look how dumb he is kind of way. Oh, he has the mind of a child kind of way. It's a really nicely observed natural innocence because adults are just grown-up kids. We forget that. We are just always kids. And so we have these little moments. Sometimes like we'll have something and we'll just play about with it and we go, oh, what was that? Like, and it's not because you are a kid, it's because you just have these little things, and that is one of those moments, and I like that he likes that. I find that really nice. The hockey game seen in the episode is the New York Rangers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins, right? However, there were no NHL games in October in 94 due to the lockout at the time. And that is very interesting because you can place exactly when this game took place because they say the date. October 20th, 1994. Because the lockout in place was in 94 and 95. Basically, it was all to do with the bargaining agreement. It was to do with money. But there were no games that were played. The season was basically halved and 468 games were missed. That's an incredible amount. And all of that happened during the time of this. So it must have been a little bit of a kick for the writers to have been like, yeah, this is great. We've got the history here. We've got the story here. This will be great. Brilliant. Oh, wait, we can't do that because there's a lockout. Fantastic. It's kind of like those movies and TV shows that were written ahead of time to be set in 2020. And people are just loving their life. And it's like, oh, that didn't age well, did it? Oops. So the whole plot about Ross getting hit in the face with an errant puck will never happen again. Because in 2002, the NHL installed mandatory safety netting following the death of a 13-year-old fan at a Columbus Blue Jackets game in order to prevent injuries similar to Ross's. So yes, in 2002, Brittany Cecil was struck in the left temple by a puck that had just been deflected and gone over the safety glass. It struck her and fractured her skull, but she managed to get to a hospital. However, 48 hours later, because of the swelling on her brain, she died in hospital at only the age of 13. This was the NHL's first and, at the moment, only fatality, and as such, they went, we never want this to happen again. So of course you have the safety glass around the field of play, but now there is the netting as well to stop that from ever happening again. So if Friends were to be remade today, I doubt this scene would be included, but maybe put somewhere else, like a tennis match, perhaps. I could see that still happening at Wimbledon. The Wimbledon in America, whatever that is, just a game of tennis in New York, I suppose. And that was all the trivia, so now my review on this episode. The overarching story here is about looking at your life and going, oh gosh, is the path I'm on going anywhere? And as I watched this as a kid, I just thought, oh, okay, I'm not going to relate to that crisis. I'm not going to relate to that thought because things will go well for me. Things will be on the right path. I will be doing things right and things will fall into place. So that's something that I can't relate to. And now I'm here and I'm 6 years older than the characters that I've just seen on screen. I am like, oh gosh, they weren't spiraling enough. Because that whole thing of Rachel going, well, everybody around me is either getting pregnant or promoted or engaged, and all I'm doing is getting coffee. Like, yeah, that is a very real thing. It's such a difficult thing, especially in this day of social media, to look at your peers and look at your friends and acquaintances and not compare yourself. It's very difficult to not compare yourself, especially when you see things and qualities in other people that you wish you had. Because you always notice the thing that you are most insecure about in someone. And that is on many levels. If you've got an issue with your weight, it's the first thing you notice in someone else is their weight. If you've got an issue with your height, it's the first thing you notice. How tall are they? If you've got an issue with your hair, it's the first thing you notice in anybody else. And if you've got an issue with your place in the world, it's the first thing you notice in other people as well. And you can't help but do it. If you've got thoughts about, oh, am I ever going to meet anyone? Am I ever going to find my person, end up, married, end up in a loving relationship? Oh, but I'm fine being single. It's okay. And then you see, oh, look at this person I know going on holiday with someone, going to events with someone. Look at them just spending time with someone. Oh, okay. Why has that not happened to me? Will that ever happen to me? How can I make it happen to me? Like, it's a real thing. When it comes to relationships, it comes to careers, it comes to everything. And it's a real thing and it's a difficult thing. And you can really see where Rachel's coming from. And the fact that it kind of brings down Phoebe and Monica as well. I mean, Monica says, Phoebe, do you have a plan? Phoebe goes, I don't even have a plan. Like, yeah, I don't even have half a plan. And they had such optimism. They had such hopes to begin with, and then Rachel's kind of realism just brings them down. And yeah, I get it, but the salve is here, and this is going to be just feeling sorry for myself here. The salve is here that at the end she has this moment of, oh well, everything's fine because at least I've got my friends. If you don't have that friendship group, then you don't have anything. You know what I mean? Because the plot of the episode is kind of mirroring the theme song. Because the theme song goes, no one told you life was going to be this way. Your job is a joke. You're broke. Your love life is DOA. And then the second verse, you're still in bed at 10, work began at 8, you've burnt your breakfast so far, things are going great. Your mama told you there'd be days like these, but she never told you when the world would just bring you to your knees. you know? But I'll be there for you. And so you've got this list of things that are bad in life, but I'll be there for you. But I have a friend. I have you there. And that's what happens in this episode, really. Rachel's going, I don't have a love life. I don't have a career. I don't have any money. Oh no. At the end of the episode, she goes, but at least I have my friends. And this is one of those moments that I spoke of in an earlier video, one of those sort of like warm hug moments that only appear in the first season. The very final shot. I'll just play it for you now.
I've got magic beans. No, never mind.
To the left, to the left.
I'm fine.
Do you get what I mean? It's that kind of, oh, we've had our laughs, but isn't it nice? And you don't see that in later seasons. That's why I do really like season 1 of Friends. I've said this before, but this is one of those moments. And they'll pop up a few more times and I'll highlight them again later down the line. But yeah, I definitely understand where Rachel is coming from in this. And I definitely understand the woes and the troubles of someone who is approaching 30. That's Rachel's perspective. I'm approaching 35 now and I feel in the same place. I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about where they are when they're my age because they've definitely got their lives much more together than I have. I'm going to move away from this point now because I don't want you to see me fall into a pit of despair on video. But what I am going to do in order to lift our spirits is play a quick montage of some of my favorite jokes from this episode because still I laugh out loud at the way that some of these lines are delivered.
Hey, Joey, what would you do if you were omnipotent?
Probably kill myself.
Excuse me?
Hey, if little Joey's dead, then I got no reason to live.
Joey, omnipotent.
You are? Ross,
In what? My first time with Carol was my first time.
What?
Oh, Rachel, it's the Visa card people.
Oh, okay. Will you take my place?
All right. Yes, this is Rachel.
They do genuinely crease me every single time. And talking about laughter, take a look at this scene where Lisa Kudrow can't contain her laughter.
Would you look at her? She's so peaceful.
No! What? Hi.
What's going on with you?
I got no sleep last night.
Why?
My grandmother has this new boyfriend. And they're both kind of insecure in bed.
She is trying so hard not to break right there. And I love it when shows keep in those little moments because it's kind of like a little fourth wall break. Do you get what I mean? Like you are seeing not the character, but the actor trying not to laugh. And you go, oh, I appreciate that. I like that. Look, all pretense has been dropped and we're seeing the core, the real them, the core of them. I just like it. I've always liked that moment because you can tell she's fighting for her life right there. Good on her. And so there we go, my friends, the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave any thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, why not give it a little like? And if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any other future videos, why not hit the subscribe button? Because then when new videos come out, you'll see them pop up on your feed. And also it helps me because I'm like, oh, look how many people actually want me to continue looking and diving into these videos and giving all these explanations. It would just be wonderful to have you here for the journey as we go on through. And dedicated viewers, did you notice that the light has not flickered once? That is because I have a new light. That's right, it came the other day. I don't know if you can see it right there. That is now a plugged in permanent light, no more flickering, and has all different colors. I'm excited to use it. Well, I say I'm excited to use it. I just put it there and it lights up the back wall. So I'm excited for it to not embarrass me by constantly flickering in the background for my future videos. And so a new light for continued content, and it's time for me to switch it off because this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Luck and more to you all, and catch you next time.